Welcome back, everyone. It's finally time for another Bloodhunt lore video. It's no secret that even before it ended development, Bloodhunt stopped adding quests to the game, which significantly slowed the lore content being added to the game and left me with not much left to do. However, there are some gaps in the videos that I've made, which I will be working to rectify as I find time to do so, starting with the most notable absence, a video covering Custos. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Custos is a gangrel and child of the infamous Nodus scholar Cuthbert Becket. In the Camarilla Court of Prague, Custos holds the title of Keeper of Elysium. As Keeper, it's his job to ensure that all the rules and customs of the Elysium are upheld where Elysium is declared by the prince, as well as being responsible for upkeep of the Elysium. Though it is often not much more than an honorific position, it is one that holds much prestige, as well as a fair share of scrutiny. Though often very polite and friendly, Custos is viewed as incredibly archaic, and he seems to be very stuck in his ways as a Victorian-era nobleman of England, coming off as both pretentious and aristocratic. Though he tries to maintain a sense of propriety, tact, and cultured politeness, his dated opinions on things sometimes slip out, such as his stance on Omnis's preferences for they-them pronouns, resulting in him being barred from the lower levels of the Elysium that the Nosferatu have purview over. In his past, it has been hinted that Custos was an assault feeder, attacking victims that he chose to feed on. Sometime in more recent years, Custos has chosen to forgo such tactics and instead tries to subsist entirely on bagged blood, stating that the invention of the technology was a massive improvement over glass bottles and other archaic storage methods. He maintains partial ownership of a biotech company that may be his normal source of blood bags, though the chaos in the city has caused him some trouble in acquiring them, leading to him eagerly awaiting the return of Quilla and the Tremere, whom have control over the hospital's blood transfusion department. Custos has been serving as the Keeper of Elysium since the time of Prince Karlach. Though it was not a position he ever intended to occupy, he has come to enjoy doing his part to uphold the sanctity of the Elysium and works hard to see that his rules are followed. He attempts to stay out of the politics that beset other members of the court, but is quite social and loves speaking with other kindred. Custos has one known child, Renee, whom he kept close. Due to the fact that gangrel are very rare in the city, Renee always believed Custos' bearing and demeanor to be typical of a gangrel. This perception was proven false when Renee met an anarch gangrel named Max and fell for them. Custos learned of their liaisons and banned Renee from seeing the anarch again, and tried to keep them locked away, though letters found written by Renee indicate that they have either committed suicide or faked their own death as part of a plot to escape the city with Max. Luckily, the truth behind these letters was recently revealed. Though it did not make it into the game, the intent was for them to have been awaiting the dawn to meet the sun and end their own life when they were approached by Maya, who provided them a way out of the city and away from Custos. Their fate beyond that point is unknown. Custos tries to maintain a mediating presence in the Elysium, attempting to get disparate parties in the city's court to work together, though it often leads to him being manipulated by one party or another. Though he agrees with Carol that the Anarchs must be destroyed if they have any hope of surviving, he sides with Maya in taking a more measured approach to the task than the sheriff would like. It is thanks to Custos that the Elysium was available to survivors as he rushed to prepare the once-abandoned chambers in the wake of the attacks. He worries that the entity has more than enough resources to wipe them out if they are not careful, and has spent his time since preparing the Elysium for others and researching ancient Inquisition texts alongside more recent works such as a journal of a first-hand witness to the Second Inquisition attack on the Vienna Prime Chantry of the Tremere, to glean as much information as possible about who they are dealing with. He finds the quickness and efficiency with which the group set up a perimeter around Old Town to be extremely concerning. Only snippets of Custos' mortal life can be seen from some of the stories he tells. He lived his life sometime in the 1800s and is a noted Victorian adventurer and gentleman, a part of the aristocracy of that time. He was a self-professed big-game hunter during his mortal life and states that he had hunted all over the world. In 1855, during the Crimean War, Custos sailed with the French-British naval force and visited Japan when they docked at Hakodate, which was open to British ships as a result of a recent treaty. He was invited to stay with a samurai who was fascinated with Western culture and wanted to learn as much as he could. Custos stayed with him and tutored him for 2 months before returning home and was gifted with a katana the day he left. It is unclear when exactly Custos was embraced, but Shark Mob recently released the circumstances surrounding it. At some point in time during Custos' life, he began exchanging letters with the kindred we know as Cuthbert Becket, and after many discussions between the two, Custos was invited by Becket on an expedition. Though the circumstances of the venture are not known, it was to a faraway place and the conditions were harsh, resulting in other members of the party being killed one by one. Sometime during this expedition, Becket deemed Custos worthy of the embrace, though Custos' feeding proclivities may have soured their relationship after that point. Whenever it may have happened, by the time of the late 1800s, Custos was a kindred, as he makes note of the joy of seeing the Toreador, quote, blossom during this time period in London. It is not clear when he left London, but it may not have been on good terms, as he notes much later in his journal of dreams he began to have, referencing being in London with a mutilated woman at his feet and the taste of blood on his mouth, and noted being worried that his past might catch up to him. Nothing is stated for certain, but the timing of his possible flight from London and his original tactic of assaulting those he fed on alongside the notes of this dream could be clues that pointed to Custos being the infamous serial killer Jack the Ripper. Regardless of the truth of his exodus from London and eventual arrival in Prague, Custos spent many years traveling and seeking adventure, often keeping to himself and not mingling much with the affairs of the other kindred. It is unclear when he established a haven in Prague, though it may have been before he fully settled in the city, as he wrote a book at some point about the Czech legions that fought for freedom from the Austro-Hungarian Empire that led to Czechoslovakia becoming an independent nation at the end of the First World War in 1918, though it is unclear if he did this due to having been present for these events or not. The next time we hear of Custos is when he notes that he was gifted a Tommy gun in the 1970s by a man from Chicago, with the dress and mannerisms of a proper man of the mob, though it is unclear if he had been in Chicago for this occurrence, or if it took place somewhere else. Regardless of his adventures, by 1989 he was fully situated in Prague and began to frequent the court of Prince Vasily until the Toreador's untimely and abrupt replacement. This occurred in 1998 when the current keeper fled in fear of Karlach, running right past Custos as he entered, and the new prince's eyes found him and he was offered the position. Custos points to his aristocratic upbringing as the reason why Karlach chose him, and felt that as he was never dismissed or killed, he must have been successful in the role. Throughout his tenure, he found that he had missed socializing and grew fond of the trappings and duties of being keeper, thoroughly enjoying the role. In 2012, Custos aided Karlach in hosting the first convention of Prague, where the Camarilla and the Anarchs gathered to resolve their differences in the advent of the Second Inquisition. It was not to be, however. The infamous betrayal of Theo Bell shook the kindred world and changed the shape of events moving forward with a simple shotgun, a weapon Custos grew to disdain. Despite the fallout of the first convention, Custos retained his position through the rise of a new prince, the Ventru Marcus. Sometime during Marcus's years as prince, the Elysium was relocated from the catacombs below Castle Prague to Marcus's own haven, likely the Kinsky Palace, located on Old Town Square in the Old Town district of the city. From here, Marcus eventually began planning for the Second Convention of Prague, which Custos also assisted with. This time, that work included assisting the prince in placing weapons throughout the city in secure locations as an insurance policy should the peace talks once again go poorly. Though Custos was not present at the talks themselves on that fateful night, he acted quickly in reopening the former Elysium under Castle Prague to use as a refuge and staging ground for the events of the game, as the current Elysium had been hit in the attack. As court members began to gather the next night, Custos fully supported calling a blood hunt on all anarchs in the city, citing the decree by Prince Marcus a few short months before that any kindred who broke the Masquerade would be blood hunted without trial. He believes that if enough anarchs can be destroyed, it will allow the Camarilla to go to ground until the entity are convinced that they have eradicated the threat in the city and leave. Despite his quick work, which likely saved many kindred, Custos did not escape the turmoil unscathed. In the fallout of the attacks, he has had trouble scrounging blood bags to feed on, and lost control at some point during the night in question, killing a mortal. Carol has since become aware of the murder and is actively seeking the perpetrator, believing that they will lose control again and put them all in danger. Will Custos be able to maintain control of his beast in the nights to come, or will the seemingly gentlemanly gangrel give in to the animal side that his clan is known for?